All right, it is time to talk about what I consider to be the greatest slasher movie ever made. Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. Well, I guess I'm done after this, right? This is the last one in the series. The final chapter. Too bad they didn't make any more. So, now, oh man, where to begin? I think there's just... What I want to say is that I think what makes it the greatest slasher film ever made, and little side note here, I do not consider Halloween to be a slasher film. I know, call me crazy, whatever, we can debate about that later. But that's nor here nor there right now. I do consider this. And the reason I consider this a slasher film is because there's a high body count. There's tons of on-screen gore. There's nudity. There's everything a slasher film has. Halloween just doesn't have that kind of stuff. Like, as I said, I don't want to get into why Halloween is or isn't a slasher film. It has slasher elements, no doubt, but this is a true slasher film, and I will put it up against any other one. The only other one I can think of that's close is The Burning. But what gives this film the edge is the characters and the dialogue. Take parts 1 through 3, for instance. Like, if you were to collect all of the dialogue in those films and put them together, they would not amount to the conversation between Ted and Crispin Glover's character in this movie in the back seat when you first see them, and they're talking about BJ Betty and putting it in the computer that don't lie, and him being a dead fuck. Like, just that dialogue and scene alone, for me, is what just... It shows me, like, there's nothing that can touch this film in this series or in any slasher film. Like, the dialogue, the characters, the kills, everything in this film, to me, is flawless. Now, this is an interesting thing for me, because this is one of those films where I should look at it and be like, okay, even though I can tell this is bad, I still love it. That's not how I feel about this movie. When I watch this, I genuinely don't see it being a bad movie. I genuinely see it being a great fucking movie. It is the quintessential slasher film in my mind. So, if people think this is a bad movie, then they think that the slasher genre as a whole is shit. And I'm sure that they do. But it isn't. It is a legitimate subgenre and something very close to my heart. Obviously, I'm being biased here, but I genuinely think this is a great horror movie. It has everything I could possibly want in it. It has scare. I think this is the scariest Jason on film. Jason is very menacing in this film, personally. I know a lot of people like Kane Hodder's performances and think like this, and I get that. I totally understand. He has a very, scary presence to him, but there's something about this performance, that is truly terrifying. Especially when towards the end, when he's chasing Trish around, and the scene where he cuts out the lights and Trish is standing there and he's coming at her, like, Jason just looks so scary. Now, I don't really get scared with horror movies anymore, but even when I was watching it this time, I was like, wow, like, this is actually a scary scene. And Jason looks just terrifying. So anyway, getting into this, and just more dialogue, just from Axel's holy Jesus jumping Christmas shit to the nurse that's with him, calling him the Super Bowl of self-abuse, and, Teddy yelling out the window, you got a sister, rough, and, as I said, like, the whole computer don't lie, and, dead fuck shit. That dialogue is so funny, and it never gets old to me. Every single time I hear it, I not only have to recite the lines with them, of course, but I get a laugh out of it every single time. And it's not like a cheap laugh. It's genuine, like, this is funny. This is good dialogue. These are great characters. And another thing that I really like about this movie is that Corey Feldman, young Corey Feldman, I know a lot of people don't like him now, and he's done like this this like rock and roll career, and he comes and he's whatever. Like, let's throw that kind of stuff aside. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. Young Corey Feldman, you know, License to Drive, and The Goonies, and The Lost Boys, and The Burbs, and, you know, Stand By Me, and this, and plenty of other films. This is really the only film where Corey Feldman's character that he plays as a kid is like an innocent child. Especially that scene where he's watching Samantha and Paul, you know, make out and she's taking her top off. Like, that scene is a true, like, you know, child watching that kind of thing for the very first time. Like, the way he's throwing himself around on the bed, and his mom walks in and he throws himself down and he's like, I'm asleep. Like, you don't get to see Corey Feldman being an innocent child in much. Like, in all the, you know, aforementioned films that I just talked about, he's a wisecracking little, you know, sarcastic asshole. And while I love all those characters, you know, Mouth from the Goonies, and you know, I love Corey Feldman in those films, truly. But this is that one rare performance from him where it's like he's this innocent child who obviously loses his mind here at the end, but it's a rare performance from Corey Feldman, and I really, really like it. Another character that I really like that I don't think gets enough credit is Gordon the dog. I love Gordon, man. I love that fucking little dog. You know, he's a big dog. But I love that he comes in, he sees the carnage, and he's so terrified that he just jumps out the window and is like, nope, I'm out of here. He might be the smartest character in the whole fucking movie, and maybe the entire franchise. Another thing that we get from this film is an actual timeline to go off of. When Pamela Voorhees' grave is seen, it's shown that it's 1979 on the grave. You would think it would be 1980 because they said the present when the first one started. But since that movie was made in 1980, but it was actually 1979, which would mean that this film was set in 1984. And another thing that I don't think that is discussed enough is a lot of people talk about how Halloween 1 and 2 take place, you know, one after the other, you know, in succession, and that it's like that's like the next minute. And I don't think we ever really give enough talk to the fact that 2, 3, and 4 take place right after each other. Like, everything you see in 2 through 4 takes place in a short span of time, like a couple days. I think like 3 or 4 days. Which I think the reason we don't discuss that very much is because the look of Jason changes through films. You know, even though it does start where the last one leaves off, the look is so different that it just doesn't feel like the same day. It doesn't feel like the next night. It feels like, I don't know, years have passed, or a year has passed, but it hasn't. Crispin Glover's character was his goofy dance that he's doing to AC/DC's Back in Black. In reality, that's what he was actually dancing to, but in this movie they changed it. I've never seen him actually dancing to that song. I'd like to see it just for my own eyes. I know that he did that dance himself. That's how he danced in the clubs back in the day. But I would love to see that. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I've just never looked for it. Teddy Bear, such a great character. You got basically like what it, you know, is the Double Mint twins in this. There's really just, as I said, if I was going to talk about my negatives, I'm not going to, because there isn't any. For me, personally, I see no negatives in this film. I also noticed that this is the only film that I can think of where Jason doesn't use his trademark weapon. He doesn't use the machete one time in this film, which is it's crazy to me, because this is one of the most violent films in the series, and one of the, you know, a high body count, and I just like Jason didn't use his machete. Really like that Rob. And something I don't think a lot of people understand, who've only seen it maybe a couple times. But Rob's sister that he's looking for is Sandra from part 2. The girl with the big boobs who's running after the tow truck that's getting towed away. Like, they don't put anywhere near enough attention. Like, they should have shown a picture of her. They should have done something to make you realize who he's looking for. Like, you don't really realize it until you're, like, really sitting down and paying attention. Like, who's he looking for? Sandra. And that also hits you like, oh yeah, like, even though this has been years for film, it's only been like 3 nights since Sandra died, which is really weird to think about when you're watching this film. You're like, wow, so like everyone who died in 3 just died yesterday. And everyone who died in 2 only died like 2 days ago, 3 days ago. It's weird to think about when you watch this movie because it just doesn't feel like it, but it is. Yeah, so I really like Rob's obsession in this movie. And I like that they, gave him like a worthy opponent, basically. Now, he doesn't actually fight him at all. And he has that line, he's killing me, which everyone seems to think is hilarious. I think it's super sad. Like, and I know that was the director's intention, was it for it to be kind of gut-wrenching. And I'd find it like that. I'm like, that would be horrible to be being hacked up and trying to, like, he was out looking for his sister. He failed. And now there's this other girl who he can't protect. And it's like, he's killing me. Like, no, like, there's nothing I can do about it. Get the fuck out of here. I can't help you anymore. He's killing me. Oh, it does get to me. It's like, oh, that's horribly sad. We also get to see yet another, towards the end, we get to see Corey Feldman using child psychology, like Jeannie did in part 2. Like, she manipulates him by seeing the mother and takes the sweater and throws it over and pretends the mom. And Corey Feldman, how he would know this, who knows, but he went for it anyway. And he pretends to be Jason. So Jason kind of gets tricked in the same way. We yet again have another girl who locks herself in the house, takes a couple minutes to do it, and then brings herself to the back of the house, and a body is thrown through the window. That is 3 out of these 4 films now. That's just a trademark, I guess, in these films. It's funny watching them and back to back like this and really paying attention and being like, they did that in the last movie and they did that in the one before this. Jesus Christ. Trish not being able to jump over, one of the twins' bodies when she opens the door. I don't know which twin that is so stupid. It's so ridiculous. Like, she can't just walk around. She can't just jump over it. Like, she has to go. She goes to the back door and Crispin Glover's hanging up. So then she breaks a window to get out of the house and come on, that's silly. That's not a complaint. This movie has no flaws. And for the 4th film in a row, we have yet another fantastic final girl chase sequence. It goes from one house to the next to the next. And it's, it's tense, it's drawn out, it's not quick, and it has a fantastic payoff. You get to see Jason's face, and this is my favorite of the Jason faces we see. Whether it's in 2 or 3 or 4 or, later installments like 7 and 8. Something about this look just looks right to me. And I know that's what Savini did. He came back to kill off his creation and properly age him from the mongoloid he put in the opening scene of Friday the 13th. And I think this is the most accurate depiction of what Jason the Mongoloid would have looked like grown up. To tell a really quick story to go along with Corey Feldman's final scene in this with him shaving his head. Once upon a time, many years ago, when I was in beauty school, yes, I'm a hairdresser. I've mentioned this before. But I got a DUI because I was being stupid. And I had to spend a few, 10 nights in jail for that, which I'm glad they did. But there was this guy who was in there, And I'm going to try to make this a really quick version of it. He was crazy. He was in there for shooting someone, and he was supposed to be transferred to prison the next day, and they were just holding him in there. And so I went to sleep that night, and it was my first night in, and I didn't know what to expect. I was like, this is just jail, it's not prison, so like I'll probably be fine. So like I'm asleep, and I wake up to like 5 a.m. This guy is holding a razor, bleeding down his face, and he's like a foot away from me. And I was like, what the fuck? And he's like, I'm going to the joint, man. I gotta look tough. I gotta gang up with some Aryan Brotherhood, so you need to shave my head and make me look good. I heard you're a hairdresser. And I was like, and I didn't want to get on his bad side. And I was just like, okay, I'll try. So we went over and we took a little Bic razor like Corey Feldman is using in this movie to try to shave his head. This guy's hair was only maybe this long. Corey Feldman's hair is like this long. And I sat there, and this guard kept trying to take the razor like from the door. He's like, you need to bring that over here right now. And the guy's head was like half shaved, and he was bleeding all over the place. And all we had was like soap from the prison. And we were putting it on his head, and we kept shaving it. And it was just like, he was like, do it, do it, do it. And I was like pulling, it was scraping, and blood was coming out. And he was screaming, and he's like, yeah, shave it, shave it, shave it. Like I tried like for like 20 minutes. I was just hacking at this thing, and I couldn't get that thing completely shaven. They finally came in, like took it from me, and I was like, and he pulled him away. It was a crazy story. It's true though. And so when I was watching this movie, and the kid's just shaving his head with a Bic, and he comes down, it's like almost completely shaven in what seems to be like a minute or two. I'm like, bullshit, Corey. Bullshit. Not possible. Now, getting into my final thoughts here, you know, what I've been saying in the last things. We have my kill count at 12, same as part 3, which I was surprised about. I would think that this film had a higher kill count than part 3. It seemed like it did, but it didn't. 12 and 12, so that brings his total to 33. Best kill in this movie for me, and there's so many great ones. You got, you know, the corkscrew and the thing in the face, and you've got, you know, Samantha's kill through the chest, and you've got so many fantastic kills. But the best kill in this movie, hands down for me, is Jason's demise himself. The boom in the face, falls on it, slides down. You see his like skull separating in the second shot. It's got to be one of the greatest gore scenes, kill scenes in the history of film. Yes, he doesn't die in this because then he sees him move and he hacks him up or whatever, but considering a kill scene, it is glorious. God, I love it. I could watch it 100 times. I have watched it 100 times. My favorite character in this is gotta be, ooh, that's tough. Either Crispin Glover or Teddy. I can't not call him Crispin Glover. Like, he's just Crispin Glover. Because Crispin Glover is Crispin Glover. Like, always. I love him. You know, Back to the Future, River's Edge, whatever. I adore the guy. But he's just Crispin Glover to me. So, anyway. Yeah, that's tough. Teddy Bear. Axel's great too. I mean, he's got such short time in this movie, so for him to even be in the running with only like a minute or two. But I'll have to give it to Teddy. He just has the funniest lines in this movie, and I just love the character. His whole computer thing, dead fuck, all that stuff is, you know, and the hand through the crotch and the, hey, I love it. And even though there are a lot of beautiful women in this movie, the hottest chick easily is Samantha. You know, Jesus, she is a wonderful, beautiful woman. So, actually, there is more movies than this. I was kidding in the beginning. So, I will be continuing with 5 through 12 soon enough. But, God, this was such a blast to talk about. I had a lot of fun. Hopefully I didn't ramble all that much. Tried to make this as fun as I had with the movie while I was watching it a minute ago. So anyway, guys, I will get to 5 as soon as I can. All right, good night.